Because my lovely computer somehow doesn't see the screen, I need to use different device, and the different device doesn't have the fonts I want to use. So you see this font here, which is not the font I intended to use, and somehow it didn't embed in the presentation. So you need to embrace your imagination and think that it's lovely font instead of this Arial ugly font that you see here. So I hope that you all like the presentation anyway. My name is Kasia Mrowca, and I will be your host today, and we will be generally speaking about how to make the application lean and get rid of unnecessary features, features requests, features that we already built. Quickly, who I am. I'm basically a product person. I started my career as a network engineer. I was coding as well a bit, but then because I had good communication skills, I transferred myself to the product role, and I'm mainly working on kind of technical projects, so integrations, engines, like booking engines for tickets and stuff like that. Currently, I'm working also on a big data project and a lot of various stuff that not necessarily have UI, and this is challenging as well in terms of making the product working. So I hope that my experience will be like insightful. So who else I am? So I'm like agile person. When I was still in Krakow, I was running the meetup called Agile Enthusiast Krakow. We had the conference Agile in Europe, which were held in Krakow. I'm also part of the Agile in Europe community. And here you can also see my contact details, so feel free to check out my blog, feel free to email me if you have any questions. And important question, do you have Twitter? Hands the people to have. Okay, I see that majority of the people has, so please feel to tweet. Maybe my slides are slightly uglier than usually, but anyway, you can tweet. Okay, so let's kick off this thing. So gluttony, why basically I even consider gluttony as something bad? Because you can think, okay, if customers want to have a feature and they explicitly ask us, okay, we give you, you know, pile of money, you delivering us a feature and everyone are happy, right? Not necessarily. Sometimes customers want new feature because they simply have their own like paper kind of work that they're doing, and they want to maintain paperwork, and you know, maybe computers are like fine, but well, let's do the same way as we did. And usually it's a bad approach because it means that instead of shorten the period of time that it's required to fulfill the business process, we're just exceeding it because we are adding additional steps connected with using lovely applications. Sometimes our customers are so glad about delivering new shiny products that they want more and more. And there's plenty problems like that. So basically, gluttony is a carving that basically means that we want more and more. And maybe I'm like laughing from that, but you know, all those stuff that's basically I'm showing here as a cartoons or examples have like their reflections in real life. So let's imagine that we have a software that is kind of legacy software. By legacy, I mean it's like at least a few years old. And maybe another question, I'm very curious what kind of systems you're working with. So I will start with like new apps. So who is working on application that is like less than a year old? Okay, few of you. Who is working an application that is like more or less like 2 up to 5 years old? Okay, few of you. Anyone who is like between 5 and 10 years old applications? Okay, still few hands. Applications around like 10 years old? Okay, more than 15 years old? Still few. More than 20? Oh, yeah, you have a few hands that are still there. So you know that legacy software exists, and it's still working, and we have to maintain it. And even if we have new brand shiny software, it will, at some point, will be old. And basically, you know, if it's like adding new and new features, what's happening is, let's try if it's working. Oh, no. You know, another challenge, press the play button. I see that I'm just failing. Let's try again. Okay, so imagine you have legacy software, you're adding and adding more and more features, and basically what happens is that maybe it's just like working, you know, it's doing what it has to do, but then we have our business people asking, maybe we can add one more feature, what do you think? Yeah, oh yeah, of course, it's the last one and then we'll be done because it's legacy, so no one obviously wants to add anything more. So we just add it. And what basically happens is we'll just continue adding and adding. Our system is slower and slower and even more slow, and then suddenly breaks. And we cannot add even more features right at that point because basically each attempt to add anything, it's dangerous, it's really risky, and it's really hard to add anything. So that's why adding new stuff once our customers pays us huge amounts of money, it's not necessarily wise. So my talk will be divided to actually two parts. First is like, okay, why actually we shouldn't add the stuff, or what are the threats of doing that, and what is the cure for that, so the immediate takeaways that you can try to apply in your company. Hopefully it'll be something useful. And the last part is like, having a thought, what would happen if we remove unused features? I think it's especially interesting if you know that your system is going to grow and you are experimenting with new stuff and you are adding features, and maybe you're leaving them there instead of thinking, okay, maybe we can actually switch them off and remove. Okay, so moving ahead. So how the gluttony affects our product? So first of all, it starts to be complicated from the user perspective. It's really hard for the UX designers. And now I'm quite curious, because there's I think, really variety of people in the room. Are there any user experience experts here? Raise the hand if there are some middle hands, no? Okay. So I just won't stay here long, but basically our colleagues from user experience, they probably will hate us if we start continue. It doesn't mean that our software shouldn't reflect business goals. It should, and it should be complicated enough underneath to do the business process as it should. However, adding new features to the UI to the exactly same screen is not the best way to do. You can make modules, you can divide the application, maybe you can think about having two separate parts of the application just to not overload the one piece that you are modifying. Because if you're doing everything in one place, then suddenly the complexity grows as well. Modern world and really fashionable microservices, it's really hard to design something if you don't split it for smaller chunks, especially if you want to have microservices which are quite separate. Okay, so again, it's really hard to follow from the user perspective if you have a lot of features, so we are lost. It's a bit like the science. You have no clue, and especially if you bought software 10 years ago, you just continue to request new stuff because they are so brilliant, and there are brilliant developers just waiting just to fulfill all the wishes, then suddenly users start to be actually unhappy, which is sad for us and really surprising for us because we expect, oh my God, we are delivered what they asked, so why actually they are saying something wrong about our product? From our perspective, the complexity connected with maintaining the code base grows as well. So it's really hard to say, okay, what the change will do for the other parts of the software. Also, it means that we have dependency that we don't know. So there's a few stuff like that. This slide was so lovely when the fonts were correct, but well. Okay, another one. So as I said, there is a point in time when users are quite happy in terms of the functionality they have. There is a point in time where I actually lost because they have too many stuff and they can't find anything they actually bought software for. Kind of maybe example, I was doing the booking engine, and one of the marketing people thought, okay, let's implement chat in our application. And we thought, okay, chat, like Google Hangout or something? Oh, yeah, that's excellent idea. Come on, people would like to chat while booking the tickets, right? Well, right, but the use case is quite small, and doing something that someone else do better, it's not necessarily a wise thing, especially if you have already quite big software and it's quite heavy. And if it doesn't add to the core functionality, which is like if you are booking a ticket, you are more interested in really quick response time rather than with chatting with somebody else who's also maybe your relative who's like booking the ticket. Because if you want, you probably use your phone or other chat provider, not necessarily the booking engine. So those are the stuff that we should to consider. Okay, what's next? Backlog itself. So if we have the list of our requirements and we have thousands of them, and basically we try to figure out, okay, what is the roadmap of it? Also, if we have too many of them and we agree to do everything, we suddenly start to have commitments. And why commitments are wrong? Maybe not wrong, because every business wants some kind of the predictability, so they demand, oh, give us deadline, give us whatever you are thinking that you can deliver. And then other people, based on your estimations, think, okay, we can integrate with your engine, with your API, with your something, because you said that it will be delivered then and then. Could be fine. However, if there is some new thing that you want to squeeze into your backlog, then suddenly you can't because you have certain capacities, certain commitments, and other people are relying on you. So what you can do is, like, again, reprioritizing, maybe having more and more meetings in order to plan it, and then you are just wasting time in shifting the tickets, and it's not necessarily good for your business because then you are, instead of delivering the new features, you are sitting in a meeting room discussing what we should do next. I'm not saying that roadmap is bad because actually it's an excellent idea to have in mind what you are doing next. The problem is if we have the timeline with like no space for adjustments. So again, let's have an example of banking. A few years ago, or even not a few years ago, but a year ago, the fingerprint login wasn't a thing, you know. Basically, a few apps has it. The Apple just introduced it, so it wasn't that trendy. But just imagine if you are developing banking app and there's like new shiny technology that allows you this beautiful login. You would like to do it like instantly because it means that customers will be happy because it's like really convenient. If you have roadmap and you see that, oh yeah, we can start implementing it in 2018, it basically means that you just lose your advantage. And also, like, funny story, myself, when I moved to London a year ago, I was used in Polish banks where I lived before. There was like fingerprint login to the bank account. It was like normal for me. When I moved to UK a year ago, barely any bank had it, and it was like surprising for me. And actually, as soon as someone released the app with the fingerprint login, I switched the bank. So users sometimes do stuff like that, especially if the products are really similar, and if you are like aiming for like young people, then it's like really wise to think what is the target. Okay, moving forward. Backlog itself. Okay, so if we have the roadmap to 2019, except that it's really hard to prioritize and see, we have huge size and we have no clue what is in it. So again, having nothing in your backlog is bad, but having, you know, like 10,000 user stories and you have no clue what is there and trying to make the order is like pointless as well. And 10,000 is like a real example from real company, and I've seen stuff like that. And what is my advice? Delete everything and start from scratch, because you won't be able to find the stuff that you are looking for. If you cannot delete, because there are organizations that basically won't allow to delete, just create separate backlog and start everything from scratch and maybe migrate the stuff that you identified as important ones. But again, if you have like really huge number of items and you have like one team with 5 people, it's just not going to work. In order to identify the size you need is like, okay, taking the average time you need to finish the user story. You can make some complicated maths, but usually if you assume that one developer do one user story per time box you are using, it means that for 5 developers you need 5 user stories per time box. it's really good to have something like at least 2 sprints ahead, so it means that you need like 15 user stories. So definitely it's not the 1,000, definitely it's not the 100. If you're having more stuff like that, so you have small team of developers and huge team of product owners, it basically means that you are not, okay, sorry to say, but people who are not coding actually are not delivering the product. And also I worked in a team where there were like 5 developers and 3 product owners, and I would say that it's not correct ratio. So if you see stuff like that, better rethink. Okay. Another thing, again, priorities, as I said, if you have something like that, you are not able to find the priorities because there might be something really important, but you have no clue that it's there. Because unless you have the army of product owners and then they are able to communicate correctly, then maybe you are able to guess that everything is like fine. Okay, documentation itself. Sometimes it's tricky as well if you have like really huge product and with hugely like really comprehensive documentation. And sometimes basically people don't pay attention and write anything. So basically by anything I mean like lorem ipsum or things like that. And it's quite useful to actually have something documented. Why? Because after a few years, maybe someone would like to change the feature that you implemented right now, and they won't have a clue what you did if you have no trace of the documentation. I'm not saying that you should put like everything there, but at least like the general scope. Again, technical documentation is something different than the kind of user guide and stuff like that. You need basically both. Also, my advice here, if you are really don't like documentation, write at least automated tests. With the systems that are 20 years old, it's challenging though, because it's really hard to write the test to something that was implemented that far ago, but still it's possible. Automated tests also are really good because even if you don't remember that there's some dependencies, tests will check that you just broke something. So I strongly recommend that piece as well. Okay, quickly recapping what basically is wrong if we have too many features requests and basically too overweighted backlog. So not be able to do clear design, clear UI. Users are like lost with the features that they previously used, and now when application starts growing, it starts to be clunky. And basically complexity of codes as well is like hard for us. Again, from the backlog perspective, we are not able to identify real priorities, and also we have roadmap commitments, so other systems are relying on us. And again, because it's 21st century, I think there's almost no standalone applications, and everything talks to each other. So our roadmap basically says, oh, okay, other people will rely on us. Okay, so moving forward. So what we can do in order to clean it up? So there are like few ideas. Some are better, some are worse maybe. So people like tend to think that if we have like estimates and we have like story points, we can give the estimates to the customers and customer will be basically afraid. It's a mistake. Why? Because customers are like, okay, if you once deliver something what was big, they will remember it. And they thought, okay, it's expensive because it's difficult, but we will pay because it's important. So they don't understand that why we are doing the high estimation. And frequently, I've really seen that developers try to like trick business people by giving high estimate. First of all, because no one understands estimates. I think that even in our industry, we can't agree what estimate is and what it's not. Some people are for like no estimates kind of approach. So say, oh no, we need to have estimates because we won't be able to predict the future. Sometimes I think that actually we should provide ourselves with the crystal balls because it will be more accurate. But well, those are the discussions around. And basically, the poor customer within it just feels lost as well and just starts to like saying, okay, I don't understand this anyway. I'm already used to the big estimates because my development team always gives me the big estimates, so what's the deal? Maybe we can have like magic numbers, which are like, okay, I'm so sorry about this slide because I see that it's completely unreadable. But basically, here should be written that our PMs have like magic Excel spreadsheets. They put our estimates in, and then they have the cost, timeline, and deadline. So again, you need to use your imagination. And I think the worst part is basically that if we are giving the big estimate without any kind of communication, it means that a business doesn't understand that we are doing it because it's not beneficial for the business, not for us. Because we can do it, they are paying us so well. So those are the stuff. Again, this is something that stops the conversation as well. So once we start doing big estimations, our business feels like a bit cheated, especially if we deliver something and they see that it wasn't impossible, then it's really hard to gain the trust again. So how we can basically do the right thing and clean up in the right manner? So first of all, we need to think about how we can start. Usually the first start is identifying the vision. What I recommend is a product tree. Product tree, it's basically a non-linear way of capturing the high-level ideas. There are not user stories, there are not epics, there are ideas. So going back to example with the mobile app. So high-level idea of logging in, if you don't have a clue what technology is there, could be just, innovative way of logging. And then when opportunity arrives, so the new device login is available, you can detail the idea and break it down to the epics and user stories. So you are not wasting time basically on predicting stuff that you don't know. There you can apply it for several kinds of products. If you have the booking engine and you know that you would like to integrate with some new vendor, which is like maybe a startup right now and they are building something and you know that they will build something soon, you can again have the new high-level idea, which is in the circle called future. So it's not inside the tree, it's slightly outside. Again, inside are ideas that you would like to tackle first within the time box you are working in. Why I'm actually using the time box several times, not sprint or something like that? Because obviously there are agile methodology, but we can also use something which is not agile or some mix. I think there's no one correct way of working and each company is different. Again, context is the king. And because I'm consultant, actually I should say it depends, right? As all consultants. But again, stuff that are here, I will just move shortly to them, are basically stuff that we are working on. Tree is quite nice because also it shows that you cannot have you can have dependencies between the branches, but if you say, okay, one branch is a module or set of features or something, it's easier for business to visualize that it shouldn't go across the branches, right? Because sometimes when we talk with a business and they say, oh yeah, I want this feature here, and we say, oh no, but it creates kind of ugly dependency and we just make the system a bit overloaded. Because of that, they somehow don't understand. If you have branches, it's easy to imagine that one branch suddenly doesn't start to merge with another branch and then go apart again. So it's a kind of easy visualization, and you can try at least to separate things to make them working. How it can work in real life? Post-its. Again, to make meeting productive, you need to have all involved parties. And again, it's really good to prepare upfront. If it's existing application, probably you have already the branches. If it's new application, you just start gathering ideas and cluster them and then only review it on meetings. So those ideas here are also pre-gathered ideas, getting everyone in the room and just making certain that the stuff that are inside the tree are inside the tree and stuff that are for the future are for the future. You can also have something which is like underlying needs. So for instance, integrations with other systems that we rely on that are basically basics. So you can tweak it. The product tree is actually a tweak from the book which is called Innovation Games. You can go there and see different inspiration for doing a lot of stuff connected with requirements and things like that. I really recommend it because it brings a bit of fun to workplace as well. Okay, once we have identified the ideas, we need to somehow detail them. And in order to detail them, it would be actually good to validate if they make any sense or not. This is stuff what I called love versus ROI. What basically it is. So we care about money. Here you need to imagine that is a dollar sign. It is on the slides, so I will publish my slides with the correct font afterwards, but now use your imagination. But we are working software, so we are using imagination on a daily basis, so I think we are fine. And here is the love. Why love? Basically, it's something that our company cares about. So again, booking engine is probably performance. If we have the UI stuff, maybe it's like the usability in terms, okay, how to make shorter user path for certain activity. So each company has something that they are caring about, so this is this axis. And we just choose one thing. And then we are taking our ideas and trying to put them into the graph, in the place that we think it is. So something that brings money, but maybe not necessarily improve the performance, in the case of the booking engine, will be somewhere here. We just put all ideas like that, and suddenly we see that we have like the winners. We can make this, name it like this magical MVP, but just please remember that you need to use common sense. If you have the requirement connected, for instance, with security and with login, and it's somewhere here, maybe it's not brilliant because it doesn't improve any kind of performance. Maybe it doesn't bring money, but it's required in order to basically not get fined or basically not to use all customer details. So it's important. So you need to think and validate if you have ideas like that, that maybe they don't bring money, they don't really improve situation, but they are required from some different angle. We also need to include them in a kind of our scenario. Okay, so how it could look like in the real world. Again, we are trying to do the stuff in a post-it manner, gather the people and discuss. The most important thing here is just to hear other people's points of view, because from technology perspective, we are pretty good, we can do it ourselves, but business sometimes also need to understand why we are doing certain stuff, especially if we have the projects that are not that GUI-oriented, I would say. So let's say we have this booking engine, we have this performance, and we have business people who are selling maybe our booking engine to some websites, and we are saying, okay, why we actually should care about caching? And we can explain, yeah, because it makes our performance better. Or why we should care about A, B, and C. And then we can discuss and find the new priorities. And also maybe we can discover that suddenly the pink UI is really important because pink is maybe the thing this year, and it's fashionable color, and our customers will love it. So that's why it should be higher. So this is a certain area of conversation that this helps to bring in the room, and again, understanding the different points of views. And also it means that later on during the sprint, if we are not able to do something because we have a blocker, we also understand what is the next priority. And we don't have to spend another hour on another meeting in order to prioritize everything again. So I think this is the quite good advantage as well. And business as well can understand why we are doing certain stuff in that and not the different order. Okay, I think that I have to speed up because we have like 15 minutes and I have a lot of material. Okay, later on, if we have the ideas, again, we need to validate in terms of at least if it makes sense from the core business perspective that is currently in the application, so if we are not breaking anything. Let's have an example of the booking engine and integration with a new provider that maybe gives us some nice, cool feature which says, okay, you can choose the color of your plane. You are booking the plane ticket and accept the price, you have the color. Maybe for some weird reason, business said, oh, it's like cool stuff, people want to book that way. So you are checking, like at least mentally, if it makes sense from the maintaining current business process level in terms of, okay, can we, for instance, speed up our performance? Can we improve the query quality? And can we, for instance, maybe improve the user experience? So we have those ideas and we validate, and we discover that unfortunately integration with that particular stuff maybe actually it's like not really improving our performance. On the other hand, the query quality is higher because it's like new database and maybe we can improve stuff like that. And then you are choosing. The best way is to choose 3 core business process and validate idea against. If the idea is terrible, so you see that only the sad face there, it's better not to do it, better to park it and maybe wait for later. Why I'm presenting that? Because usually we have brilliant ideas and we don't validate them until it goes to the production. Sometimes we are lucky because we are going to the production frequently. Sometimes we are working in companies where the production release are like once a year. That's reality. And I think that sometimes, especially if you have this release once a year, at least mental validation of the idea is really crucial. So what next? We shouldn't be too accurate in our estimations because anyway, we will be wrong. And my always assumption to the estimates is, okay, we will be wrong, so just don't waste time on it. So moving forward, sometimes you just cannot run away from estimates because business wants predictability and we need to use estimates. If we need to use them, it's really crucial to give additional flavor to them. So one of the key things that we can add is the business value, which is taken actually from the business people, and also we can add risk explicitly. So again, having the, oh my God, it looks so bad, sorry. So again, if we have user story and we have the story points, it doesn't say anything. Even 21 for people who are working with Agile says, oh my God, it's a terrible idea because it's simply too big. We shouldn't see something like that. For business people and people who make decisions, it's just a number. Maybe they have an Excel that translated, but basically it doesn't mean anything. So what we can basically do is just divide it and say, okay, after this 21, it's like huge risk. And business can say, okay, it's risky, but it's like really cool feature. So again, returning to the example with the logging thing. So maybe it's the logging, but some fancy fingerprint, which works also not only on the phone, but also on the computers. Maybe we can actually split the user story for 2. So one will be still big, but it will be like, you know, this everything. And the second one will be, okay, let's do the iPhone first because it's the relative, again, the complexity is the same, but the risk is slower. Business value is slightly lower because it doesn't have like everything. Again, if we split it for the computer and the phone, then maybe we can discover that for the computer it's risky, but the business value is slow because people usually, if they use computer, then they doesn't use fingerprint for logging for the browser stuff that they are using. So then you can compare what needs are fulfilled between. And I move the slide because it's so ugly. So just use your imagination and think that you need to like compare the 2. And then add recommendation in the end, just to make certain that we are explicit in what we are doing and what we would like to achieve, which business needs are delivered, but which version of the alternative of the user story or backlog item. Here I should actually pause and ask if you know what user story is. So please raise your hand if you heard term and understand term user story. Okay, and now please raise your hand if you don't understand user story. Okay, there is no hands, that's good, because there are like few people who didn't raise their hand and I assume they are sleeping. Sorry. Hope that you wake up after this because there's a coffee break, so you can grab the coffee and will be brilliant. Okay. Adding recommendation is important, and then we can also like now go to the final, my favorite part, which is actually trying to think about removing the features. Yes? Yeah.
Since we were late when we started and there's a longer coffee break after this session, I propose we go for 5 or 10 minutes more. Is that okay?
I have not many slides left, so no worries. I won't overrun massively. because I don't know if you noticed, but I was speaking really, really fast. You should tell me it before. Okay, so now I can, finally breathe. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so how about deleting? This is terrifying thought for a lot of people. Why it's terrifying? Because we have no clue what happens, usually. Not always, because sometimes we have nice products with a lot of automated tests, and we are quite confident in removing the features. But usually when, especially business people hear like the idea, let's remove something, they are terrified. Come on, customers paid for this feature, we cannot remove it, right? We can. Why? First of all, we need to think how to measure if customers are using the feature or not. If we are working in internal IT department, we can simply ask. Users probably will say, oh, yes, of course. But anyway, we need to measure it below in the code because probably they even don't remember that feature exists. If we are working as a software house and we have like multiple users, then measuring is even more important because it means that if we remove something that someone actually is using, and it's like more than one customer, then we have like plenty of calls on our head and people will be really angry. So we are measuring. Again, we should measure in a certain time frame. So story from my life, I was working in the internal IT department. We had nice tool. Basically, it was kind of data analysis and doing reports. And we noticed that certain type of reports and certain types of queries are simply not used. We just measured it, and we had like nice shiny button for main accountants. And well, we just noticed that for half a year it wasn't used. So we decided, okay, let's wait one month more, but hide the button. And let's check which is like important or not. It was during the switching the account years period. We hid the button and waited. And then we had the call from accountants saying, guys, we had a really useful report. We run it like once a year, and we cannot find the button. You did some changes to UI, right? And then we were really glad that we actually didn't delete it, because we found out that this was the one, off kind of feature used. And we just unhide the button, everything was fine. It's easy to imagine that if we were like less fortunate and measure for say 11 months, but before this crucial period of the year and delete it, then probably we'll be like pretty screwed. Sorry for the word. So just also take into consideration that when you measure, make certain that you understand when the feature might be used, especially if you are working for the financial stuff. So again, we can discuss if we actually need a feature that is used once a year. So this is a different matter. So again, what the story tells us. So first of all, we can measure underneath in our code. We can hide the features and check if customers are calling. And if we are more than one customer, it's also really good to align with our marketing friends. Why? Because they have PowerPoints. And as we know, PowerPoints are not as frequently refreshed as the software, and refreshing PowerPoint, as you can see on my example, is more challenging than refreshing codes, So if they have screens of the application with the feature that we hide or removed, and they show it to customer, and then customer asks, okay, but where is the feature I seen it in the presentation, I bought the software, I want the feature, right? So then it's misalignment, and could be pretty challenging for both sides, marketing, just to say why it's not there, and for us, because, oh my God, we just deleted it, right? So it's good to align that we just changed something, so the state should be changed as well, and the description of the product should be changed, and everything like that. Especially if we have stuff like continuous delivery, and we are switching on and off features and not communicating with the marketing in business, could be kind of challenging, so it's really cool just to communicate. Again, this is one thing. Also, we need to remember, because uncertainty causes fear. So what basically we are fearing is that our application will suddenly break because we don't understand the dependencies. So what I recommend is having automatic tests, because then we can at least say to the business, don't worry, we know what we are doing. If we remove feature that breaks the test, we just reverse to the old version and everything will be fine. So we can really remove it and nothing bad will happen, application will be stable. Again, if we have ERP kind of software, which is like big and heavy in terms of features, this is really crucial because for certain we have a lot of dependencies. Maybe we may try to switch for the better kind of architecture that avoids dependencies, but this is the process as well. And again, returning to my question from the beginning, depending how old your application is and how many features there already, the process can be harder or easier. So basically, removing is good because you reduce as well the complexity of your code below. You reduce the complexity of your UX stuff that you already have, and basically if your business partners are like concerned, okay, why you want to remove it, you can also justify it. Come on, now our application will be simply lighter, so it will be faster. And my impression from seeing like old software is that, oh my God, why is it so slow? So if you try to sell the idea of deleting, you can say, okay, we can improve the performance if we make our application more light, and maybe this will actually give us some advantage in terms of our user base. And again, our users sometimes doesn't notice. And it's really frequently that they don't, because they simply don't use the feature. Especially, we can do it when we try to replace, again, one story of one of the companies I worked in. We had the feature that was doing exactly the same thing, but in like 3 different manners. So in practice, there were like 3 different features doing one thing. So we merged it into one and then hide the 3 others. And really, customers didn't notice. So you can do stuff like that, and what basically it meant that suddenly the application was working smoother because of that. Okay. So quickly wrapping up, and I think that even though I had like extended time, I squeezed everything, which I'm really glad, and then maybe we'll have time for questions. Wrapping up, why it's dangerous to have too many stuff. First of all, we have UI challenges. Users are confused. Our code base is like really, really huge. And we don't see the priorities, we don't see where our commitments are going, and we cannot squeeze new, shiny, innovative thing in this roadmap because everything is so tight. And we even don't understand why it's so tight. So one of the ideas is having like non-linear product roadmap that allows us to keep the ideas and not waste time on making details for something that will be developed within 3 years ahead. And also, what else it does, that if something is like not shiny and trendy anymore, we can just remove the idea and we didn't waste time upfront on detailing it. Again, we can use kind of bluff versus ROI approach to determine what is our magical MVP, so how to deliver our lovely unicorn to the production in like a reasonable time. Try to validate mentally if it makes any sense in terms is it beneficial or not, but again, keep it quite high level and try to bring additional things to estimations just to make certain that everyone understands everything. So, thank you for your attention. I hope that you like it. So those are my contact details. So if you have any questions, you can ask now. So do you have any questions? Yes?
Hi.
Hello.
I've got a couple of questions, actually.
Okay, that's good.
Can we agree on something? You need estimates, because on the customer side, they always want estimates. I've never seen a project where they say, okay, estimates, go away. We don't do that. So my problem is basically they want estimates. I give them estimates, we do something, and normally something happens that they always want, they want more.
Yeah.
That's what, in my impression, is future gluttony. Either I'm fast enough and we have time, so they want more, or I'm not fast enough and they interpret what we agreed on paper differently, so they want more. Yeah. In either case, I want to say no. That's basically what I want to do, but I'm not allowed from my company to say, no, I'm not going to do that. So do you have any tips how to transfer that to the customer? Because I don't like to do the dance. Okay, we're dancing and I say no in some other way, but I still say no. And the customer, not every time, but they are not satisfied because they want the feature. So is there something you can help?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, it's, again, as far as I understand, you are like software house then, or you are like internal?
We're an IT company, and we do individual development for
Okay, so there's like
customers.
one customer and has like one kind of set of features, right? So you're not having like universal stuff that works for, let's say, 15 customers.
No, we don't do standard software. We do individual. Depending on the requirements, we do what they...
Okay, so first of all, customers need to understand that what you are proposing is for their good. So showing alternatives. So I'm not certain if you count, but again, if you have, I just moved a few slides. If you have this thing, okay, which was the thingy? Okay, here. So if you have the idea how to make the thing better in terms like reducing the scope, because I understand the problem is like saying no to the excessive features that they shouldn't need them, right? But they still think that they are, right? This is the problem? Or the problem is that you have...
Let's just assume I cannot change the old requirements. They say they want that on top of that, because that's usually the case.
Okay, so if you are not able to change requirements, and you want to say that you don't want to do it, right?
Basically, yes. I want to satisfy the customer, but let's assume I have this amount of time, I need this amount of time to finish all that, and they want on top of that, I don't know, B. That's the usual case.
kind of usual scenario, because always scope is growing and time is not, and budget is not. So everything is fixed except the scope. Yeah, okay. So even though I'm like against linear approach, just list the stuff in the queue and say, okay, this is amount of time, like really visual way, which we are having. So let's say it's a month. This is the list of features. If you are adding stuff here, here's the line. Just draw a line on like paper or somewhere. Okay. Put the stuff in the queue and say, okay, it's going below because we simply don't have capacity. It's, you can also use the analogy of like the, I don't know, any kind of like bag that you have. That bag has certain capacity and you simply cannot have more. So for instance, you are flying with Ryanair, you have bag with the certain amount of capacity, a certain amount of the weight allowed. So it's similar in terms of the software in saying, okay guys, we have a month, we can do that much. Our estimates may be wrong, maybe plus minus 10%. Because, okay, it's guessing, it's still guessing, but again, it's trying to visualize why we are not doing it. Because if you say just no, they again won't understand it. So this is the biggest problem. And again, if you know that the feature is wrong because it will destroy the software for some reason, so I don't know, destroy performance, give the estimates connected, okay, this added feature will make the performance 20% lower, maybe made some, I don't know, destroy the business process A, B, and C, let's say like selling ads or whatever. And then you can basically show, okay, this is the bad influence you are adding by doing this feature. So you can do stuff like that as well.
Okay, I understand the risk thing. That's something I usually do because it shifts the responsibility to the customer, so it's his choice whether he wants to take the risk or not. I understand that. However, the prioritize thing is difficult in my experience because he has to cut something. He has to cut the feature, and that's making them not happy. And for example, the usual question is, why does this take so long? That's a common question. I estimate something. Always. Why does it take so long? A simple change in the UI.
Yeah. Then you can also say that it's not simple change in the UI because you have backend. And again, it's like trying to explain. Again, depends on how close you are with the customers. Because if you have several layers of people who are translating what you are just saying to the customer, I agree that it makes like totally challenging, right? Because here you have developer, you have probably like product owner, maybe marketing, sales, and there's a customer. So then the chain and saying, okay, why it's like difficult and why it's taking a time is really challenging. But I would say that I would suggest actually trying to raise awareness of the customers, because otherwise they will keep asking about more and more and saying, okay, small change in UI reflects the bigger changes on the backend side. And again, why it's like time consuming, again, you can say because you are influencing future A, future B, future C, blah, blah, blah. It's like conversation and making certain that people understand.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We're running out of time, but I have to say I love this tree metaphor because then you have a place 6 feet under for bad ideas.
Yeah.
It's a really good place just to keep them there.
Yes.
Thank you for patience and excuses for this technical problem initially, and thank you very much.
Thank you.